Hi guys, so today you're going to be taking a few notes on Greece's geographic features and how they impacted Greece. So you're going to be able to identify the characteristics of what Greece's geography was like and how it impacted the development of their cultures. So you'll be able to identify the following terms and concepts: geography of Greece, the geographic effects of Greek cultures, and the establishment of pulses. So make sure you guys have your notes, your graphic organizers ready to go. So as we talked about yesterday with our maps, Greece has many different mountain ranges. One of the mountain ranges we talked about was the Pindos Mountains. Another mountain range is the Mount Olympus. You're going to learn about exactly how many mountains were in Greece and exactly how they affected each of Greece's part of life. So as I stated before, Greece has the Pindos Mountains, which you can tell right here is in this area right here as well. Okay. Also, if you notice on this image, there's a lot of brown spots right here and right here and right here. These all represent different mountain ranges that are in Greece. So as you can tell by this image, Greece is very mountainous, meaning it doesn't have just one mountain range. It's covered with mountains. And these mountain ranges have had many different effects on the country of Greece. So think about what we already know about mountain ranges. Mountain ranges can vary in their size and how big they are. So mountain ranges, remember, can be very huge. So what this means is that because Greece was surrounded by all these different mountains, all of these cities that were in Greece, the mountain ranges separated them because of how big they are. So it was very hard for these cities to be able to communicate with each other due to the number of mountain ranges that were in Greece. So because they were separated from each other, these cities had to develop their own kind of identity, because if you just wait to get influence from other places, you're going to end up dying. So what did they have to do? They developed their own system of way of life, whether it means creating new laws, creating a new government, or just creating a new way of life for themselves. Also, one of the effects of the mountain ranges is that because mountains are very hilly, it made it very hard for the ancient Greeks to be able to farm, because rocky soil or mountainous soil is very hard to farm with. So the Greeks had to find new ways to come up with farming because of being surrounded by mountainous and being in the mountainous areas as well. So these are some of the effects of having the mountains in Greece. Number one, Greece's mountainous land separated the ancient Greek cities from each other. So what this means is that because the mountains surrounded all of these cities, they became very isolated from each other. The second thing is that Greece struggled with farming because of the rocky terrain, or because the land was hilly in those areas where they developed their cities. And then finally, because that they are developing these cities that are isolated from each other, they never had a unified system of government in Greece, meaning that each place had its own system of government that was totally different from each other. So under the section mountains, you should have these three bullet points. So make sure you put these into your notes. Number one, mountains isolated Greek cities, meaning that because these mountain ranges were all over Greece, they isolated each city from each other, meaning that they couldn't really connect with each other, or they couldn't really communicate with each other. The second point is mountains made farming very difficult. Because the land was very hilly and it wasn't flat, it wasn't ideal for them to be able to grow crops. And then finally, the third point, new Greek cultures were started. Because these cities were all separated from each other, they all had to form their own identity and their way of life that were totally separate from each other. So make sure you get those three bullet points in your graphic organizer. So another thing we also showed yesterday with our maps was that Greece was surrounded by many different seas. It included the Ionian Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Aegean Sea. In this next couple of slides, you're going to learn exactly how the seas affected Greece in terms of how it affected them when it comes to their trade, and also how it affected them with getting different cultures to part of Greece as well. So the first thing is that use the vocabulary term, Greece is a peninsula. Remember, a peninsula means that they are surrounded by three bodies of water, but it is still connected to land. So it was a peninsula. However, it did have many different islands. So if you can see on this image right here, there's many different islands right along here as well. So the seas that surround the parts of Greece are, you have the Ionian Sea right here, you have the Mediterranean Sea to the southwest, you have the Aegean Sea, which is right here as well, and then you have the Sea of Crete right here as well. So the seas allowed Greeks to travel and trade with other different countries. So, for example, Greece or Athens could trade with Italy through the use of the Mediterranean and Ionian Sea. Greece could also have traded with Turkey or Asia Minor by using the Aegean Sea. So it allowed them to trade with other different countries, and because of this, encouraged cultural diffusion, meaning that Greece could take elements from many different countries and incorporate them into their own kind of culture as well. So even in today's present-day time, Greece still uses the Aegean Sea, Ionian Sea, and Mediterranean Sea as well, whether it's for traveling purposes, for tourism, and also for trading as well. So even today, though, Greece still uses these seas as an advantage for themselves. So the effects of the seas there were two main things that it allowed it to do. Number one, the seas allowed the Greeks to depend heavily on trade and to be able to use that as a food resource for fishing and for trading as well. And because of this, the trade that they had encouraged cultural diffusion. Again, cultural diffusion means that you take pieces of other people's cultures and you kind of incorporate it into your own. So as an example, the Greeks were heavily exposed to the Phoenicians' alphabet. Phoenicia was a country that was close to Greece, and also Greece was influenced by Egyptian geometry. So they took those elements from those societies and incorporated it into their own. So in your graphic organizer, under the category of seas, you should have these three main bullet points. Number one, Greece was surrounded by many different seas, as we talked about earlier. The Ionian Sea, the Aegean Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea. Point two, these seas allowed Greece to succeed in trade, meaning they were allowed to trade with different countries for different resources that they needed to provide for their citizens. Finally, seas allowed for cultural diffusion, meaning that they were able to get other pieces from other different countries and incorporate it into their culture as well. So because of the number of seas that Greece was surrounded by and the number of mountains that were in the country of Greece, Greece was then divided into hundreds of different city-states, or another term you will use is polises. And when we are done with these notes, we're going to go over what exactly a city-state is and what made them so unique from each other. So in your last box that's unfilled, you should put in there city-states were developed as the effect. The reason why this is the effect is because the mountain ranges isolated all of Greece from each other, meaning that they were not connected to each other, and also the seas isolated Greek cities from each other as well. However, they were still connected with other countries such as Egypt, Asia Minor, and other countries that were surrounding it. So city-states were developed as the effect because of the mountain ranges that were in Greece as well as the seas that surrounded Greece as well. So we just took some notes on the different geographic features of Greece and how it led to the establishment of city-states or polises. Now the next thing we're going to learn about is exactly what was a city-state and how it made them unique to Greece and how they ran things in terms of how they ran their country.